Hey guys, it's your favourite shoe enthusiast, EDDBUD here, back with another comparison video. Some of the viewers requested this one, so this goes out to you guys. A comparison between the Saucony Endorphin Speed and the Fuelcell TC from New Balance. Before we get into that, if you are a new viewer and you haven't done so already, I would appreciate it if you'd hit that subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications of when EDDBUD launches the new videos. Also, it helps the channel out massively. If you do enjoy the video, hit that like button. So there's a £25 price difference between these two shoes, one with a nylon plate obviously and one with a carbon plate. These present a good high-paced training option for runners who are trying to up their mileage. What are the differences between these two shoes? Which shoe shines in which aspect and which will come out on top? Who knows? Let's get to it. Upper first. There's a similar feel to the upper in both of these shoes. The texture's very similar. I spent quite a long time, I'm not going to tell you how long, just touching the upper to see what the texture's like. They're very similar. They've got this part transparent mesh. It's very, very close on both shoes. I'd suggest the Saucony's a little bit more breathable. The mesh is a little bit denser in the Fuelcell TC. I achieved a slightly better lockdown in the heel on the Saucony Endorphin Speed. Definitely don't need a runner's knot with this shoe. On my second run today, 7 miles, 7 minutes 31 seconds per mile average. I just placed my foot into the shoe, tightened it up, and I was good to go. That's after spending about 3 or 4 hours just bumbling around in the house because I just really didn't feel myself today. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the weather. It's been raining, it's very humid. I just felt really under par, but not in a golf way, like a good way. In fact, I kind of felt over par then in that case. How does that work? When people say under par, that's like a good thing, but it's not, because they say they feel under par like they feel bad. Any ideas on that one? Send in postcards. The upper's a lot more flexible here in the TC, and I always needed to use the runner's knot to get a better lockdown. Do you know, just looking at the mesh on here, it's really similar. It's very similar. I think that additional suede effect stuff here does add a little plushness, but it also adds some weight too. The Saucony's not quite so plush in that heel area. No, it's nicely padded. I would suggest it's a very, very comfortable shoe on foot. Certainly in the toe box there's lots of room. My feet never feel constricted and compressed up there. In fact, my toes felt really good. After the 4 mile hardest section of the run today, my toes just feel fine. This really is a wondrous shoe. It does feel nice and locked in, certainly after running in the Pegasus 37 recently, where your heel's just slipping and sliding around in there unless you crank those laces tight. None of that in the Speed. Overall lockdown on foot is superb here. The set and forget nature of the lacing means that it's the champ for upper. Midsole now. I firmly believe that with plated shoes, the predominant saving is in the foam. Many academic papers that have looked at carbon plated shoes, or at least plated shoes, have noted that the saving in the shoe is mainly from the foam. There's only small limited savings or improvements that are dished out by the plate itself. Though of course any saving is always welcome, isn't it? Taking that into account, I feel that these shoes are actually quite vastly different in terms of the implementation of the plate. Imagine with the Fuelcell TC of leaping into a giant marshmallow. Imagine the Saucony as leaping into a ball pit of tiny beads that are so tightly packed together that it just feels like one bead. Something like that. The Saucony certainly does feel firmer than the Fuelcell TC underfoot, but yet it's still forgiving. This is the beauty of it, and thus the TC demands a much more disciplined and controlled gait cycle. I feel those that have bought the Vaporfly series in the past and worn and enjoyed those shoes will feel more familiar perhaps with the Fuelcell TC underfoot. I think the DNA of this shoe is perhaps a little closer to the Nike series of shoes. I kind of feel like the 4% Flyknit out the box is a 18-year-old version of EDDBUD, and the TC is a more seasoned, mature 41-year-old version of EDDBUD. Hang on, that's me now. I don't think I'm that mature. Certainly Mrs. EDDBUD doesn't think so. The Speed, dare I say it, is a more traditional trainer on foot. The nylon plate, perhaps not as prominent as the one that's in the TC, though it's certainly present when pace is increased. That Pebax foam used in the Speed is certainly densely packed. The pwrun PB is really something underfoot. Lighter and certainly feels more present as you start to push the pace higher. Some of you though will prefer that squishy fuel cell foam within the midsole of the TC. It just feels like that foam can circumvent some of the properties of the plate within the TC. I think perhaps at race paces, as you increase the speed, the TC plate will become a little more apparent, and it's certainly a very cushioned shoe. It's going to save your legs. My legs always felt great after wearing that shoe, though I think that more runners can get something out of the Endorphin speed. I think there's a slightly less in-your-face implementation of the plate and foam technology. You can use this thing on a daily basis. I did today and it felt great at all speeds. I think that that's a really important factor to have. I'll go into it a little more later on. Outsole. The rubber on the TC was still looking pretty good after 100 miles, and it does remain to be seen if the stuff used on the outsole of the Saucony will hold up over time. In fact, there was barely any wear, only a little bit here in the back, in the heel and in the midfoot. Barely anything. The exposed foam on the Speed is recessed a little bit to protect it, so jury's out on this one really. We can't tell how well this is going to hold up. Although I think I'm probably going to get to 100 miles in it pretty quickly because I want to wear it every day. Grip has been really good in all weather conditions. I think we pretty much had all weather conditions on today's run. No problems on slippery pavement surfaces. And no seagulls today. The TC was never going to hold up that well really on things like grass or other loose surfaces. It's a road hog and that's what it was made for. I don't think everybody's going to really go in for the stack height on this one as well. It is a bit of a skyscraper. And with the super soft foam, those two things together, it's not going to be for everybody this shoe. I've noticed that the dense pwrun PB foam here does seem to have some good resilience against thorns and rocks. The gravel just bounces off. It's really amazing actually. Some of the other shoes I've tried recently, I've had all sorts of things stuck into the midsole foam, but this just keeps on rolling. I thought it was going to be a bit of a weakness for the Endorphin Speed, but I was wrong. Quite different outsole styles here, but they both seem to work out pretty well. I'm going to call outsole a draw. Value now. At a mere £25 difference between the two shoes, which one comes out on top? I can see the Speed being a bit of a versatile shoe for a range of runners. In my run today, I had a 1.5 mile warm up and warm down at about 8 minutes per mile, and the shoes felt great at that pace. They also felt great when I was going much faster, up towards 6 minutes 30 per mile. There's got to be something wrong with it. I haven't found it yet though. I think there's lots of people out there at the moment on a budget. They can't afford a whole range of shoes. I need to think of the people, and this shoe for me at the moment presents superb value. You can use it almost any pace, and you could use it on a daily basis. I don't see why you couldn't. Someone will probably say, Ed, you shouldn't use plated shoes on a daily basis. Okay, I think you can. People are uncertain about their jobs, their futures, even racing. That's not really on the horizon. But if you want a nice fast-paced training shoe, here you go. It's a great fitting shoe, feels good across multiple paces, where the TC for me is more of a high tempo shoe. For those longer runs, where you're testing out your threshold pace. Thus, in terms of value, the slightly cheaper Endorphin Speed takes the crown this time. The TC is a durable shoe, it feels great at a higher pace. It's not one I'd roll out for doing those easy miles though. It's not something you can use perhaps on a daily basis. It kind of felt a little bit to me like a Rolls Royce that you could roll out the garage, and just for those kind of long prestige runs. I hope you've enjoyed today's comparative review of the Saucony Endorphin Speed versus the New Balance Fuelcell TC. If you've got any opinions or thoughts on these two shoes, please place them in the comments below. A musical interlude. I dug out this concert film from the band Love. It was based around their album Forever Changes. I was lucky enough to see Arthur Lee play with Love a couple of times, once in Southampton and once in Bristol. It was fantastic on both occasions. Forever Changes is one of those albums that's just always struck me as having a little more detail in it each time I listen. Great psychedelic folk material. If you've never heard of this band, I do suggest you go and check them out. Alone Again Or and The Daily Planet are my favourites from this album. Forever Changes. Well, it's time for me to rock and roll out of here and eat some more omelettes. Hope you've enjoyed today's show, guys. I much appreciate you tuning in. If you're into running shoe content and the general strange world of EDDBUD, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications of when I launch my new videos. It helps the channel out a huge amount as well if you give this video a thumbs up like, and share it with your running buddies. My name's Ed Bud, and I'll be seeing you